Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel, or if this is your first time here, welcome. Now, before we get started, I want to show you 3 musical cues that have been with me for as long as I can remember. Here is the first one. Are you ready? Now the second, and the third, and the one we're all here for. Oh yeah, it's Star Wars time. This is honestly something I've been wanting to talk about for a very long time, the other being Godzilla, of course. But after thinking about it for the last few days, I've been asking myself, what can I say that hasn't already been said? Like, people have analyzed everything about these movies from top to bottom. And so I feel like the best way to talk about these movies is to tell you my personal history with the films. Now, I want to be clear, I'm only going to talk about episodes 1 through 6 and not the Disney movies, because they didn't have much of an impression on me. Though I will say that the day I saw episode 7, The Force Awakens, I did wake up at the ass crack of dawn, gave myself a few minutes to wake up, got dressed, and waited at the front door, scaring the hell out of my mom. She asked me, what was I doing? And I replied, I'm waiting. Waiting for what? Mom says. Which followed with me saying, for Star Wars. Yeah, I was a kook back then. Well, technically I still am. Anyways, my history with Star Wars dates back as long as I can remember. Hell, it dates back long before Godzilla. Now, I don't know exactly how old I was when I first saw Star Wars, but it was anywhere between a few months old to a year. But honestly, it probably started in the womb, which wouldn't surprise me because my parents are big Star Wars geeks. As I was growing up, I watched a lot of the original trilogy, especially Return of the Jedi, specifically because of the Ewoks. When I was a kid, I loved the ever-loving hell out of these walking teddy bears. And that's why I think it was on the most when I was growing up, compared to A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, which scared the hell out of me when I was a kid. It was specifically the part where Luke went into the cave and fought Darth Vader, where Luke slices off his head, only for it to reveal Luke's face underneath the mask. That scared the hell out of me when I was a kid. But I was like 4 at the time, so what do you expect? Anyways, let's fast forward to when I was 7 years old. Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith was coming out and I was excited. But I didn't know exactly when I was going to see the film, so I just went on with my life. That is until one day when I was leaving for school, my mom goes the opposite direction of where my school was, which got me very concerned because I was very anal on being at school on time. She tells me that she just needed to run a quick errand, but time was running out and I was getting even more worried. That is until we pulled up to the nearest movie theater, saw a big line, and my dad was waiting for me and my mom to arrive. It took me a minute, but when I put everything together, it clicked. I was seeing the new Star Wars movie in theaters on opening day. My jaw dropped. I was, however, still worried about school, but my mom told me, don't worry. That was all I needed to hear. And in hindsight, I'm glad I got to play hooky and not had to spend time with my first grade teacher, who wasn't a nice lady to me or my parents. But let's not get into that. My memory of seeing Episode 3 is pretty vague, but I do remember the opening space battle, the part where Anakin helps kill Mace Windu, Order 66, Yoda vs. Sidious, Obi-Wan vs. Vader, and the birth of Luke and Leia. Okay, maybe it's not completely vague, but the details did feel different to me at the time. But the part that I remember the clearest was when the entire theater vibrated by Darth Vader in the full suit taking his first ever breath. Then he rises. The theater erupted into cheers. It was simply a magical moment for me, and it's a moment that I will remember till the day I die. After seeing that movie, I was obsessed. I collected a bunch of stuff related to Episode 3, primarily toys either from Toys R Us or McDonald's. I even got a Darth Vader watch, which unfortunately I cannot find. Sometime later, I got the game for PS2, and both the LEGO Star Wars games. And I was obsessed with all 3 of these games, so much so that the discs are all completely jacked up. Anyways, After a few years had passed, I did eventually get burned out from Star Wars, and I hadn't watched the movies for some time, primarily because I got interested in something else that would become a major thorn in the sides of both my mom and dad. But we'll get into that another time. Eventually, I did get back into Star Wars. I forget exactly what re-sparked my interest, but if I had to guess, it was either one of the TV commercials for The Force Unleashed 2, or watching a trailer for The Old Republic on YouTube. I do have a lot more history that I'd like to share, like the time me and my best friend, who is not a big Star Wars fan, but a big Lord of the Rings fan, we did get into a debate between which is the better trilogy, which went something like this.
There's only one return, okay? And it ain't of the king, it's of the Jedi.
Well, Star Wars geek.
Oh, I'm the geek? Look at you two whipping out your preciouses.
Which evolved into something like this.
You have the ring, and I see your Schwartz is as big as mine.
But we'd be here all day. And like Godzilla, I could talk about this stuff for hours. So let's just move on to me talking about the movies real quick.
Even the trees walked in those movies.
Starting with the originals. Episode 4, A New Hope. Or, for you snobs out there, the first Star Wars movie, which is simply called Star Wars. This movie introduces Luke, Leia, Han Solo, Chewbacca, C-3PO, R2-D2, Obi-Wan, Darth Vader, and Jabba the Hutt. But if you've been watching this movie since it first came out, you know Jabba doesn't appear in A New Hope in its original version. That is until George Lucas put him in by using unused footage which had Jabba being a human originally, which was changed into the Jabba we all know. In this film, it's all about the hero's journey for Luke after he is forced to leave home after it was destroyed by the Imperials. And so he sets off to stop the evil Empire's planet destroyer, the Death Star, by rescuing Princess Leia, who is one of the leaders of the Rebel Alliance, and also learns about his Jedi heritage and the power of the Force. This film is a classic, and even though the acting isn't the best, the sets, the world, the costumes, the lore, and the other aliens make it all up. And it's great to watch where it all started. Episode 4, A New Hope, gets an 8 out of 10. Now, for Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, which continues the story of Luke, Han, and Leia. This time, the Rebel Alliance is facing new challenges, and Luke is sent out to find a very old Jedi Master, Yoda, my mom's favorite character. This film is arguably the best out of the original trilogy, and it introduces one of the coolest characters, in my opinion, Boba Fett, and has one of the best movie twists of all time. If you've seen this movie, then you know what I'm talking about, but if not, then you're just going to have to watch and see it. Episode 5, Empire Strikes Back, gets a 9 out of 10. Now, on to Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. Episode 6 starts with the rescue of Han Solo from Jabba the Hutt, and when that's done, Luke, Leia, and Han set off to finish the Empire once and for all, by destroying the second Death Star. This is the film that shows off the main villain, the Emperor, one of the greatest movie villains of all time. He was introduced in Empire Strikes Back, but it was brief and he was played by a different actor. But in Return of the Jedi, he has a bigger role. This is the film I watched the most growing up, and as I've gotten older, I've seen the Ewoks as more of an annoyance than anything else, but I could see why little kids may like them. Besides that, this film wraps up all the major movie threads that went on across the trilogy, and gives you a satisfying ending. Return of the Jedi gets an 8 out of 10. Now, on to the prequels, starting with Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. This film introduces Qui-Gon Jinn, a young Obi-Wan, a young Anakin Skywalker, Princess Padme Amidala, Jar Jar Binks, Darth Maul, and others. I know this movie has been talked about to death, mostly negatively, and if I talked about them, it would be me beating a dead horse. Though, I will mention that Yoda looks different in 2 separate versions of this movie. Now, when Episode 1 came out, the merchandise for this film was insane. Like, this stuff was everywhere. Most of it was toys, but you had other stuff like inflatable chairs and Jar Jar's tongue. No comment there. As a matter of fact, I did have one of those inflatable chairs, specifically Darth Maul. And at the time, I thought the chair looked like my dad, for some reason. probably because back then he actually looked like Darth Maul. This film was huge because it was the first Star Wars film to come out in 16 years at the time. I was only a year and a half when this film came out, so I wasn't old enough to go see it. But I do know my mom and aunt got to see it on its first showing on the second day. If only I was born 7 years earlier. Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, gets a 6 out of 10. Now, on to Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. I'll be brief about this one because I don't have much to say. It introduces Jango Fett, Count Dooku, and the clones. The highlights are the Jedi assault on the arena and seeing Yoda fight. Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, gets a 5 out of 10. It's just forgettable to me. Now, on to Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. I already talked about how this film impacted me, and it was mostly all the major moments. But one thing I will add is that this film is the best out of the prequel trilogy, and it ties in perfectly to the original trilogy. Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, gets an 8 out of 10. Now, it's worth noting that watching these movies in both chronological order and in the order they're made gives you totally different perspectives. If you watch it chronologically, you get to see the downfall of Darth Vader to his redemption. If you're watching these films for the first time in the order they're made, none of the stuff that is touched upon in the prequels will have any impact on you. And what plays out in the original trilogy will have a bigger impact on you, like that twist I mentioned in Empire Strikes Back. All in all, these movies have been discussed for decades, and will probably be discussed for more decades to come. But the one thing I pray never happens while I'm around is to see these films get remade. If that happens while I'm still alive, I will probably spontaneously combust. With that being said, I recommend watching all these movies. They're all good in their own way, even though some of them are better than others. They're still fun to watch. Anyways, that about wraps it up. If there's anything I missed or got wrong, please let me know in the comments. And please like and subscribe. And may the Force be with you, always.